miracle that is for bringing us here together today. All right, so we're getting started. Hello, my name is Anne Marie of The Art of Healing, and today we begin a new chapter in my online presence, I think you can say, and I have been inspired to do a show called the Get Up and Go Show. And I got inspired to do it because, first of all, I wanted to get to know these amazing people that I have met in my spiritual journey. And I want to get to know them a little bit more intimately and not so heavy duty spiritually that I have, in formal settings. And I also have been really examining my life on what it means to be fulfilled, what it means to be joyful, what it means to have motivation, because we're in really, really awkward times right now. We're in very unsettling kind of times. So for anybody, really, what are we focusing on? What gives us joy? What makes us get up and go? So my first guest is the lovely Carol Morgan. Hello,
Thank you.
Carol.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me here. And I am super excited to be your first guest. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I am so grateful. Thank you so much for being my first guest. You're my guinea pig.
I love it.
And we have had our challenges already this afternoon, but we're forging through and we're getting this done. So as a little bit, just introduce yourself, because the people who might see this are a wider audience than who you normally speak to. So go ahead and tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yes, my name is Carol Morgan. I was born and raised in Costa Rica. I moved to Minnesota in 1994, came here for college, and I stayed. I love it here, have made it my home, despite the brutal weather.
Where do you live now? Where do you live?
Hastings, Minnesota. Yes,
Okay.
yes. I live in the country. I am married. I have two children. And in a nutshell, I do a little bit of everything. I have a corporate career, but then at the same time, I have very much developed a spiritual practice and spiritual journey that has led me to meet beautiful beings like you and Marie and develop my sense of self. So that's in a nutshell who I am. I love horses. I love reading. I love being busy. I love doing, but I also love just resting. So in a nutshell, that's who I am.
That's awesome. All right. So let us say, what kind of things, you talked a little bit about your horses, you talked about your children. When you start to feel down, like, because we don't want to turn on the news, but you can't ignore what goes on. You just can't ignore everything that goes on. We don't live in the Himalayas. We are Americans. And so when you start to feel a little bit unsteady, what do you do to kind of like remind yourself that there is love, that there is joy? What do you do for yourself?
Well, I usually turn in, Anne Marie, and I go inside and I really try to address what it is that is causing me to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you realize that it is a belief. There is a belief in you that something is wrong, that something is bad, that something is, etc., etc. You fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
And that is happening. What you're doing is, or at least this is my belief, what you're doing is that you're leaving the present moment. And when you do that, you're off center, you're off track. You are allowing your ego mind to take over. And the ego mind has its rightful place, I believe. And it is to take care of your body and to keep it safe in a moment of danger. But we're not constantly in danger. So
Right.
when we go down that path of sadness, we are seeing things incorrectly. That's what I believe. So, what I do is go back to center and try to find what belief is leading me down that road. Just identifying it and becoming aware of it begins the shift.
Hmm.
And when that shift begins, you start feeling better. And when you start feeling better, it's like a snowball effect, right? And then once I've identified it and I've done something about it, because you have to do something about it in order to shift it, then I decide to do something that brings me joy. I don't go to that immediately, because if you don't address the root cause, you're just putting a band aid on it. And
Yeah.
you're just kidding yourself, and you're keeping yourself disconnected. You're keeping yourself distracted from what brought you down in the first place. So that's what I do. And things that bring me joy, they don't have to be elaborate. It can be playing a board game with my kids. It can be going outside and sitting outside with the horses. I don't even have to ride, but if I want to ride it, even better. But playing music that is uplifting, taking a salt bath, whatever is calling in that moment, I go to it after examining my own mind and why I believe that something is off track.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot what we have to do. It's like one of the things that rolls around in my mind when I go through something, and honestly, I'm doing this whole thing because I want to learn from people that I admire. So kind of like what happens is I kind of say, well, in the past when I felt kind of down, I would have maybe gone to the refrigerator,
Yes.
or I might have looked for a beverage or two,
Mhm.
something to get me out of my mood. So, have you noticed how um, you have changed over this course of growth that you have experienced, whether it be 10 years, 5 years, 2 months? Are there any behaviors that you look back on now and you say, I used to do this all the time. And now I just I can't get myself to do it because I don't want to, I misunderstood what that was. Is there anything from your personal life that you can genuinely reflect on like that?
Yes, absolutely. I think the most outstanding for me was the blaming and not taking responsibility for however I was feeling or whatever I had created. That is the biggest one that I can pinpoint. And I will tell you, this journey is a continuous one. It's one of continuous growth. And although there are many behaviors that I have addressed and I have changed, very often when you are, or let us say, when I am stressed or when I am sad or whatever the case may be, they rear their ugly heads. They come back.
Yeah.
Now, what I have done different or what I do different now is that now I'm aware. Now I see it. Now I see, oh, here it comes again. I am doing this again. But now I have the tools to not judge myself for it, forgiving myself for it, and letting myself go a different path. I have allowed myself to pause and to reconsider and to do something differently. The one that I just mentioned, blaming others, it's the classic case of projection.
The
It
projection.
is somebody else or something else is making me feel this or whatever the
Right.
case may be, and that's not the case. So that's the main one, but there are so many smaller ones because I always say what makes you who you are is not just what you do once in a while, is what you continuously do that shows you who you are or what you believe really. And when you say going to a beverage, that is one. A drink, I cannot get myself to drink anymore. I used to drink as a good Costa Rican that I am. I am not able to do it. And that's not something that I one day decided that I was going to stop doing. It's something that started falling off. And the farther I went in my spiritual journey, the less I could tolerate it, to the point where I cannot get myself to do it, even if I wanted to. I've tried and it's just not there. But food is another one. It's so easy to go ahead and look at the fridge and look at the pantry and grab something that is not exactly the healthiest thing for you, because we have been trained that way since you're little. If you're
Yeah,
sad, you get some sugar. If you do a really
absolutely.
good job, you get a treat, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I can't. I live. I'm. For those of you who don't know, I know Carol knows, but I'm a elementary school teacher, and one of the things that drives me bonkers is when I see teachers offering candy as motivation.
It
It
drives me nuts
makes
too.
me crazy. I'm like,
Mhm.
stop doing that. Their motivation needs to be the satisfaction that they completed something, that it was done with a good intention, and they get that satisfaction that, yeah, they did it, instead of this bribery system that's, you're bribing them with poison on top of everything. It's like,
Unfortunately so.
bribe them
Unfortunately
with recess, bribe, well, don't bribe anyway, just, but whatever, you know what I mean, you know you know
so.
what I mean.
Yeah,
um
absolutely. So those are some of the behaviors that I have changed, is not going outside to medicate myself, whether it be television, whether it be food, whether it be drink. It's just really look inside and see what is going on. Why am I feeling this way?
Mhm.
Mhm.
I um I keep having this come up to me because one of the things about the purpose of the show is to really simplify all it takes to really feel like you are one with the world. And one of the things that I do, is, my family, we say, uh, I had this cat, okay, that I rescued from a dumpster a few years back. And she's this cute white fluffy little kitty cat. Her name is Bray. And but she is like, she wants nothing to do with anybody. I mean, she'll come to you every now and then. Some cats are just so lovey-dovey, you know, but when me or my sons will grab her and she'll let us give her a moment, we say, we're having a moment, excuse us. And we literally like go off into a corner and just cuddle. And when I hear her purr, it makes me so happy, like. So do you have any of those precious, free, intimate little moments that you would like to share with us, like that just like makes you feel like, all is right, everything out there can just go away, and that this little precious situation is like heaven?
Yes, yes. And actually it's with my kiddos. We
Yeah.
have what we call sleepovers. And a sleepover for us is throwing mattresses in the living room on the floor. And the three of us, the two kiddos and me, we sleep there. My husband stays upstairs. It kills his back, so he doesn't do it often. Sometimes he does. But going to sleep there with them, feeling the closeness, feeling that all is well, especially if they're holding my hand, there is absolutely nothing more precious to me. And I I exercise presence and mindfulness when that happens, and I really pause the chatter of the mind and really treasure what is going on right at that moment, because I am very aware that it's fleeting. It's not going to last. They're getting older. They're not going to want to be in the living room floor with their mom much longer. So I
Yeah.
do, and I pressure it. And sometimes it can go weeks that we are there, and the house looks less than ideal, but you know what? It does not matter. So,
Perfect. That's
mhm,
a perfect segue. So, what I want to ask you is going from the concept of what you should be doing, like all these nagging thoughts of like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, to changing from what you should do to really what you want to do, or
mhm.
selective focusing on what is important and what is not. you know
Yes,
how
yes.
does that work in your family? Like, that's such a beautiful example, so keep going. Sorry I interrupted, but I just wanted
No,
to pull that thought out a little bit longer.
no, and I think you bring up a really good point, Anne Marie, and it really starts very simple. It starts addressing the words that you use constantly. There are words like should,
Oh,
must,
don't should on me.
have to, and I really have paid attention. I've really started to pay attention to those words. And whenever they come up, again, I go behind the form. That's just the form. I go behind it and I figure out, where is this coming from? Whose belief is it even mine? Because very often you look at it and it isn't even yours. It's either your mom's when you were growing up, and it's not ill intended, right? They did the best they could with what they had, but it's either your mom's or it's society's or it's some sort of authority figure, wherever it's coming from. Very often you realize that those beliefs aren't even yours.
Yeah.
And that's where you start paying attention, and that's what I've been doing. And again, I cannot stress enough that this is a journey. It's not the end. It's constantly you get these items of attention, I like to call them, that pop up for you to really pay attention, to stay present, to realize that you are creating all the time, and that if you are not present, you really are not, you're miscreating, you're not creating what you want. So I started like that, is addressing the way that I talk, not only out loud but to myself. That chatter to yourself, you listen to it all day long. And one of the things that I've done is take a step back and say, if that were my best friend, would I want to hang out with her? That voice, would I want to hang out with that one? And I have noticed that I have changed a lot of the unloving chatter that's in my mind all the time, whether to myself or others, because it's constantly going and it's constantly judging and so on and so forth. So, addressing the words, addressing the thoughts has really helped me free myself from what others may think of me. And that has been the most liberating experience of my life. I've always been very independent and so on and so forth, but we have been trained to be really conscious of what other people think of us. We have been very much indoctrinated to fit in and to not stand out. And really, this spiritual journey, what it has done for me, it's cracked me open. And I want to stand out like a sore thumb. I do not want to fit in, not anymore. I want to fit out, and I want to make sure that if anybody resonates with me, is because they're resonating with the whole me as I am, the authentic me, not because I am acting a certain way that keeps them around me or that helps them feel comfortable. No, it's this is me. And if you love me for who I am, that's awesome. And if you don't, that's totally cool. You can go your merry own way. I will keep doing my stuff.
Mhm.
And by doing this, it has very much freed me. So the perfect house because I was very much OCD when it came to that department because I grew up like that. I threw it out the window. And I watched my mind when people would come visit us and they would see the disaster. I wanted to apologize for the mess so badly,
Yeah,
and I would not allow myself to do it. It's like,
that's like that's one thing that I tend to do a lot is I tend to, oh, excuse me, but sorry
yeah,
about this, sorry about that. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have to, but it's that whole sense of apologizing for something that you've made up in your own mind.
yes, yes.
That's something that is like in there, and then you automatically think that the other person is thinking the same way that you're thinking critically about yourself. Something that I did to myself for years and years and years and years until some gentleman pointed it out to me, and he pointed out to me that I gave away. I was like giving away myself. I was giving away my confidence or something by apologizing for something all the time.
Mhm.
Because I've noticed, and this is a reflection I've done for myself, is that when I apologize for something, I shed more light to it. I bring it up. It's like you're bragging about your own insecurity, and what kind of sense does that make? You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
um, maybe it resonates with you. It's something I've done for century for
Yes.
a long time.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Like oh, I'm sorry, my shirt is blah blah blah. So if I have an insecurity about my shirt and I go ahead and like vocalize that insecurity, I'm drawing more attention to it. So why do it? Let it
Yes,
go.
yes, yes.
you
There
know
are situations that that do require an apology when you have acted in certain ways. But the majority of the time that we are apologizing, we really are covering something inside of us that is not in alignment with love. And I really have put a lot of attention in that sense, and I try not to go there. And this was a perfect example. When people come, I used to apologize, then it went to acknowledging that it was there and sharing the story. And now if people come in, I don't even explain what that is.
Mhm.
And now today it's picked up because I actually did a lot of cleaning, but I will bet you anything that those mattresses are going to be there again tonight. And it's lovely and it's precious, but it's in a certain way one of my moments of surrender in just enjoying the present moment for what it is, not concerned about what anybody else might think.
Mhm.
And and it has given me permission to permeate that in all aspects of my life. Don't get me wrong, it's not that I go trampling on other people. No, I'm very respectful, I'm very honoring, I'm very caring. But when it comes to me, I really have made it an effort to detach myself from social programming,
Mhm.
that things ought to look a certain way or they ought to be a certain way. In I've actually become a little bit of a rebel where I don't want it to be the way everybody wants it to be. I don't want to look the way that society decides that I need to look, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it has been liberating. It has been beautiful. And then when it peaks up again, it tells me that there is something else that I need to take a look
Yeah, it's cool.
at. Hmm.
One of the only thing that I asked you to do is bring your favorite mug with a beverage.
Yes.
So, what did you bring today?
Ta-da! It doesn't look very pleasant, does it? It's absolutely beautiful. So what I have here, well, first of all, I love these clear mugs
Uh
because
huh.
You can see what you're drinking and they look beautiful. Now my eyes is all melted so it doesn't look as pretty, but I am drinking vegan eggnog here. Um, I,
Whoa!
it's amazing. And I bought this beautiful machine. It's called the Almond Cow. I should work for them because I tell everybody that I encounter that they need an almond cow. And what it is it's this container. It has a mesh cup, if you will, where you put your dry ingredients. So this has cashews and coconut, and then nutmeg, ground cloves, and cinnamon. And you put that in there, and then it has a blade that turns. And then in the pitcher, you put your wet ingredients. So I add water and I add maple syrup and I like vanilla. And then you turn it on and you have vegan eggnog.
Wow.
It is just delicious. It is absolutely delicious. So that's my favorite beverage, and that's my mug, and here we are. So
That's awesome.
yes,
Wow.
yes, yes.
I am such a I drink tea. I have decaf chai from the grocery store. Twinnings or Twinings or however you want to call it. It's my favorite tea right now,
There
decaf
you go.
chai.
There you go. You gotta go with what you love.
Yeah. And this is my favorite mug. It's a handmade piece by a local potter that I bought at a craft fair. And I have lots of little pieces that match this in my house, little trays and like a little cup to put my trinkets in. I've got a tray where I keep my crystals and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So this is my favorite mug. I'm trying to,
Beautiful. Beautiful.
yeah,
I had a lovely mug that broke, so this is this is it now. Yes, and it's lovely.
tell me something that just made you laugh out loud recently.
Let's see what made me laugh. So I'm a little bit of an ADD kind of person. I've never been diagnosed, but you don't have to go into.
I mean, okay, hold on a minute. Because, all right, we've got side by side going on here. And I haven't sit still for 1 second. And you're calling you're like cool, calm, and mispresentation and so elegant. And you're saying you're ADD?
Yes, but I didn't say ADHD. I'm not hyper. I'm not hyper. I can talk a lot, but I'm not hyper. What I am is a little bit. I'm a little bit scattered upstairs. It's so. It's like I have all these windows open in my head, and I never shut them off. Right, so there's all this stuff going on, and so anyway, what made me laugh out loud the other day is we were telling stories, and my friend Jen was here, and Scotty was my husband was 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 telling a story about my scatteredness and how it used to really drive him nuts. I got to the point of realizing that it was serious, that it wasn't that I was making him mad on purpose it's like really scattered. So my family was here from Costa Rica, and the septic system or sewage system in my house was running at capacity. There was a lot of us here and so on and so forth. And something happened with the pump and it backed up. And all of a sudden we had sewage water in the facility room downstairs where the pump is. So it was not a good situation. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't a good situation. So I called Scotty, tell him that he's got to come home from work. He comes home and he goes downstairs and we're all up here. And he says, Carol, please tell everybody to not use any water because I need to shut it down. I need to figure out what's happening. So I run upstairs and I tell everybody, all right, guys, don't use the water because Scotty needs to figure out what this is. Seriously, Anne Marie, I hadn't even finished saying that sentence. I turned around and I started doing dishes. So we were telling my friend Jen the story the other day. I had tears. I was laughing so hard because once you look back at it, I was like, okay, it's really funny. But I tend to do that kind of stuff all the time. So I have decided I might as well crack myself up because otherwise I might drive myself nuts. So it's not a good alternative. So yeah, I'm really good at cracking myself up because I do stuff like that all the time. I'll head to the fridge and I have no idea why I'm at the fridge, and I do that kind of stuff all the time.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Oh my gosh. I just have everything out. Nothing's quiet in there.
Everything is quiet.
Everything is crazy out everywhere all the time.
Full
Oh, that's
throttle.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, this has been fun. Thank you for your time. Uh,
Absolutely. Thank
I
you.
love it. Do you have any last, like, do you want to plug yourself? Do you want to say anything to people who, I don't know, to this new audience? What are your closing thoughts?
Well, in closing thoughts, since we are having this conversation at an unprecedented time in human consciousness, what I would love to share with people is that we have the power to create everything that we are seeing.
Mm,
So, my words are to take responsibility for what we are creating or for what we have created and to turn everything into love. We have strayed away from love and we have strayed away from responsibility and owning our part. We think that what we are seeing out there is created by somebody other than us, and that's not the case. We, with our thoughts, every single day are creating. And I just call people to turn back to love and to turn back to quiet and to turn back to inner guidance and really listen to what is in here and follow their heart.
mm,
So I think that's it. As far as what my personal work is, I am a health coach in addition to my corporate career, and I approach this in a spiritual manner as a integrative nutrition health coach. I look at the person as a whole and I help them balance their different areas. But I also try to really inject spirituality. So if this is something that people are interested in, by all means, please do reach out. At my website is I live Pura Vida, PURAVIDA.com. And that's it. Just turn in and be present and be loving. We got this.
very good. All right. Well, thank you, Mrs. Carol Morgan, for being my first guest on the Get Up and Go show. Love and blessings to everyone, and may you find the motivation to get up and go in your life. Much love. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And snap. Cut.
We got a